So we're going to start again with a leading voice, and you've actually heard this leading voice from the last panel. It's going to be Rashada Harry. Now, I love Rashada. I love a lot of people, but I love Rashada because we used to work together at AWS. And prior to that, I followed her journey quite extensively in the tech space, particularly because she founded an organization, or she co-founded an organization called Your Future, Your Ambition. And as an initiative, it's a vehicle to help organizations and students to connect, to help bridge that diversity gap. And I think that that's something that's so important as a leader. How do we help bridge the gap to others that aren't as fortunate as us? As Rashada said before, she's been in this space for a very long time and worked with some of the big boy brands, currently, as I said, at AWS. She's going to share some of her journey with you and talk about her role in the leadership space. And I'm really excited for you to welcome Rashada on stage. Rashada, come get her.
Thank you, Ramat. Hi, everyone. It's just a pleasure to be here, first of all, because when I started going to tech conferences years ago, they didn't look like rooms like this. And I think it's vitally important that we acknowledge how far we're moving forward, but also how far we've yet to go. So I'm going to talk today a bit about my journey into tech. You heard a little bit earlier about my role in law and the transition. So I'm going to share a bit about that. I'm going to have a real conversation with you because I think this is a safe space and it's one where we should be amplifying and acknowledging some of the challenges, but also the obstacles and how we've overcome them. So I'm going to share a bit about my journey and I hope you are inspired and enjoy it. And, you know, there's no silly questions. If you've got questions for me in it, I'm on stage for 15 minutes. So feel free to raise a hand. So I'll start by saying I'm from South London. If you couldn't tell by the accent, born and bred in South, okay, there's a few of us. I'm of Guyanese heritage. I'm the first of 3 girls. I come from a family of academics. So when I was at school and college and then university, for me, I always wondered why I was struggling. I always wondered why I had the insight, but it wasn't being translated in my exam results or kind of showing my expertise. And it wasn't really until the penultimate year of university that I thought, God, this isn't right. Like, I am studying really hard. I was putting in the work. I was going to the 24-hour library. I was over-indexing. I was attending all my lectures and seminars, but it wasn't reflective of my results. And it's then that one of my lecturers said, oh, you know, have you ever thought about maybe testing for dyslexia? And I thought, nah. I'm coming from a West Indian background. That's just not something that we even start the conversation with. But lo and behold, I did it, and it transpired that I was. And so, you know, for me, that wasn't a vehicle of putting myself in a box. It was actually an opportunity to understand how I learned, to understand how I thought about things and the logic and the process that my brain went through. So in my final year of my undergraduate law degree, I applied to do my master's. And coming from a very ambitious family, I applied to a couple of universities. I received a scholarship to the University of Birmingham, provided I got a 2-1, and I got a conditional offer also from the London School of Economics. And I talk about this journey a little bit in the book, The Voices in the Shadow, Volume 3, which I'm proud to say I'm part of. Thank you. And I talk about just the process of doing that. So I applied and they were like, yep, you can come as long as you get your 2-1. Now, my final weeks of exams, the pressure was intense. And it was in that moment that I went to the exams, I did it, but it was results day. So off I trotted to university to get my results. And I can tell you now, I failed. I'd missed the mark by 3 points. It was the longest summer of my life. I think I cried my way in tears. I was literally inconsolable. But in those moments when you feel that you failed and you've lost an opportunity, what do you do as a leader? And bear in mind, back then, I didn't think of myself as one. I just thought of myself as a girl from Fulton Heath who was just trying to make her way in the world. And one of my lecturers said, well, why don't you try and appeal it? And I was like, the London School of Economics, really? They've got a wait list longer than my arm. Are they really going to accept me? So I thought, okay, I'll put my case together. And the appeal panel was 6 weeks after term started, so I had to wait. I had to really wait. And I went there and I presented my case to the panel, who were all really esteemed professors in the industry. And I put my case forward and said, look, I'm tenacious. I'm really committed to doing this work. And they said, look, we really admire your gumption in trying to get to this point, but we just can't accept you. You've already missed 6 weeks worth of lectures. There's no way you're going to be able to catch up, even if we gave you the extra time in the exam and preparation. And so that's the point where I reached into my bag and put my folder on the table. I'd sat at the back of the lecture theatre for the 6 weeks, unbeknownst to them, and I caught up on everything. And to their utter disbelief, they were like, wow, that is tenacity. That's what drives leadership. And I was accepted onto the course, and I now have a Master of Laws LLM. So I'm pleased to say, thank you. But I say that to say that was just one challenge. And being a leader, as I mentioned before, is a responsibility. There's a lot of things that we can always think that leaders are, and we think that leaders encompass, but actually it's belief in yourself when other people don't believe in you. It's making sure that you don't put yourself in a box that fits other people's narratives. It's making sure that you still continue to shine your light, even when people are dimmed by it. And it's making sure you don't dim your light because other people say you're too big, you're too much, you're too this, you're too that. Be everything that you are and celebrate it. And so one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is now how I got into technology. So I got through the masters, and that was an experience in itself. I was the only black person on the course. There was a lot of really esteemed students. You know, I was sitting next to Colonel Gaddafi's son in the library. Bill Clinton came and gave a lecture to our class. So I'm around people that are not from Fulton Heath, right? Straight up. But at the same time, it elevated my thinking. It gave me an awareness of what else was out there. And so when I then applied, so after I finished the masters, I'll be quite honest with you, I didn't want to look a law book for a long time. But I wanted to get some commercial acumen. I wanted to get into the world of business and understand what that looked like. And at the time, there was something called Milk Round. Now, for those of you who are pre-internet and pre-mobile phone like me, this was an email service that went around showing you jobs. And for those who are old enough in the room are laughing with me, thank you for humouring me, because I'm not the oldest in the room. And Milk Round said there was an opportunity to join a large technology company called Cisco. You get to work abroad, work in Amsterdam for a year. They'll train you on technical proficiencies and also sales leadership. And I thought, you know what, this might just be the thing to give me that leap into the commercial acumen, because wanting to be a lawyer, it was a highly saturated course with lots of really intelligent students all going for the same training contracts with the same pupilages. So how am I going to stand out? How am I going to differentiate myself? So it was a 7-stage interview process. My God. And I wasn't quite ready. And I think these are the things that we need to talk about more, is how you prepare for these interviews, how you show up as your best self, how you amplify the skills that you have and the weaknesses, but in a way of strengths, right? So one of the parts of the process was for me to go up and present. There was 30 of us selected for 2 assessment days. And the last assessment that I had was to get up and present to everyone in the room about why I should be chosen over everyone else. Now, if that's not pressure, I don't know what is. But it's about confidence that you have. And even if you don't believe it, you act like you do. You just show up until you are that. And that's one of the things that I had to do. And I'm pleased to say that 3 days later, and bear in mind, I applied not knowing what a router or a switch was or infrastructure or anything like that. Like, I'm a legal student. I'm not a technologist at this point. And I'm pleased to say that after that process, I came away thinking, wow, I really pushed myself. And even if I don't get the job, I'm happy I went through the process because of the people I've met, the things that I've learned, and the conversations that I've had. A couple of days later, I got a phone call, and it was the lady from Cisco. And I'm preparing myself. I've got broad shoulders. I'm like, okay, I know I probably didn't get in, but I enjoyed the experience. And she said, oh, I'd like to say that you're moving to Amsterdam in 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, God. And I was pleased, but I was like, are you sure? Like, this is me, Rashada, from, South, and I did law, I didn't do tech. And I'm like, no, we absolutely liked your personality, we liked the way you thought, we liked the way that you were asking questions and challenging the people that were interviewing you, so we would like to invite you to join. And I joined the cohort of 44 students across EMEA. And there was 10 people selected out of the UK, and I found out later there were 8,000 applicants for those 10 places. But when I joined that cohort, I was the only black person in EMEA that they had selected. Now that's a lot of pressure because I'm not a technologist, I don't know computing, I didn't do even engineering. So how am I going to show up and be my authentic self? And some of the challenges with that were actually, by nature, I'm actually quite an introvert. So it's a miracle I'm even standing up on this stage, people. But I was an introvert. So how was I going to show up, be true to myself, still learn, and still not have that imposter syndrome that takes a lot of us back sometimes and hold us back from opportunities? So when I moved to Holland, it was a rude awakening. I'd never lived abroad before. I've lived away for university, but it's very different in a new country. And so some of the things that I had to make sure I did was to really talk to and connect with some of the people on the course. And we're from different cultures, we've got different experiences. And actually, some of the feedback that I got was, you're too loud, you're too this, you're too that. And actually, with respect, when you hear it from 43 other people, you start to listen, you think, well, actually, is it me? And I went inwards and I stopped being my natural self. And do you know what I realized in that time? It held me back. Because it wasn't that I was too loud, it's that they were uncomfortable, right? So how do you make sure that you don't always listen to the noise and you tunnel into your own strengths? And it took a lot of years and a lot of work for me to be able to do that. And I take that then forward to then when I joined the UK organisation. And I had a first meeting with one of my clients. It was the CEO of a large travel company that starts with an E and ends with an A, but I'm not saying no names. And the CEO came in, and we'd not met before. And one of my team had set up the meeting, and I'm the account lead. And I walked into the room, and he said, right, that's 2 teas, a water, and a coffee. Now I'm from... And do you know what? I still remember it to this day because I was like, wow. And do you know the times when you say things and you don't hear what you say until it comes out your mouth? It was one of them moments. I was like, sure, the machine's down there and I'll start the meeting when you get back. I'm Rashada Harry, I'm your account manager. Right. And I did that because that sets the tone of our engagement. Now, often when you're in a leadership position and you're the only one that looks like you, people have misconceptions about who you are and they like to define who you are. And that includes your managers sometimes. Sometimes you're shining too bright and actually, who do you think you are wanting to go for that promotion? But when you set that tone, you must be consistent in it. People treat you how you accept. And if you don't define that, it sets a tone for how you're going to continue to be treated. So that's one of the lessons that I learned very early on. And maybe that's just the South London in me, whatever. But I wanted to make sure that he never forgot that moment. And we're good friends now, and we laugh about it, but he knows I corrected him. So I would encourage each of you, when you're thinking about your leadership roles, is to think about how you want to show up, what kind of leader you want to be. Do you want to be one that's going to be amplifying others or really taking the team with you? Or do you want to be elevating yourself? Because, as I said, this is a responsibility. It's not just a title. And one of the things that I pride myself on is that when I lead my teams, I do so in an inclusive way. I work with specialists, I work with solutions architects, I build solutions for my customers. But one consistent amount of feedback I've always gotten is that you bring us in, you open doors for us. That's my role. See me as a vehicle, and I think every leader should be doing that, whether it's in their spare time or with their immediate teams or with other teams. Open yourself up as a vehicle to help others, but make sure you're feeding into yourself, and you feed into yourself with your tribe. So we talked earlier about having a board of people around you to keep you uplifted. And sometimes it does get hard. It does get tiring. So make sure you've got people who are going to remind you about who you are, who are going to tell you about your strengths, who are going to share with you, actually, you are weak in this area, but let me introduce you to someone that I met at this conference, and they're going to connect you and help you elevate. Do the connections, have the conversations. And I think it's a journey as a leader that I would say is about continuous learning. You don't know it all. Make sure that you are showing up as a leader that is not just for now, but it's for the future. Make sure that your skip level managers and your directors know the work that you're doing, knowing the impact that you are having on the business. A lot of us do a lot of DE&I, or ID&E as we say at AWS, where we lead a lot of these initiatives to help amplify the Black experience at work. I would say definitely do that, but work with leaders and hold them accountable for doing the work, because you have a day job. And unless they're paying you 2 salaries, I've got to be honest, and that be a contentious point, but make sure that you're getting out of it what you need to as well, and the leaders are also being held accountable. Build a strong foundation, and what I say by that is know who you are and your values. Even if it's just top 3 things, think of 3 things that you want to be known for as a leader, irrespective of which organisation you work for, and carry that through. And then finally, I will say advocate for yourself. You know, if I didn't have the gumption and the commitment of the hours in the 24-hour library, that when I went to that panel at LSE and said, listen, I need this degree, I've worked too bloody hard. If I didn't have that conviction, I might not have had it, because it leads on to other things. I then got off, I was then given an honorary doctorate in philosophy for the work that I've done since. And that's not just for YFY, but that's for mentoring, that's for supporting other women. So I'll close by saying, thank you. So I will close by saying that all of you are leaders. Even if you don't have the title, it's a responsibility. So please don't think that because you haven't got the title today, you won't have it in the future. But when you get it in the future, support other people and lift them up to be leaders as well. Thank you.